But when we talk about money being a tool and how God has gifted us, I don't know everyone's story here, but eventually most of us can look back and say, man, God has blessed me immeasurably more than I ever expected, way beyond my needs. And so God said from the very beginning in the Old Testament, he says, here's how you're supposed to, when you have money, here's how you're supposed to do this thing called financing. You're supposed to return back the first 10% of what you receive. That's what they call in the Old Testament. It's called a tithe in the Old Testament. He says, here's how you're supposed to return it. It begins, God has blessed you immeasurably, and here's how you can start to give back. And so that first 10%, that tithe, there was an Old Testament principle, and Jesus comes along in the New Testament, and he changes it up, not so much. We don't see the word tithe ever mentioned in the New Testament. I think the principle is still there, but that word never appears. But we do read this, and I want to see where Jesus kind of raised the stakes in the New Testament and where the New Testament goes with this. In 2 Corinthians 9, verses 6 through 11, it says this. The point is this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. Whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each one must give as he decided in his heart. Watch this, not reluctantly or under compulsion. For God loves a cheerful giver. God loves a giver that gives, literally the word there is gives with hilarity. See, in the Old Testament, there was this very fixed system of saying, here's what the tithe is supposed to be, your first 10%. And some people said, okay, I want to do my duty. And there are a lot of people, when I was growing up going to church, there were a lot of people who would walk into church and they gave reluctantly. They gave saying, okay, I know I'm supposed to give, so I'm going to give, but I'm going to hold on to that money until the very last second. And so Jesus comes and says, listen, this is more of a heart issue. I want to teach you the principle of continued giving, but it's more a heart issue. And he says this, I don't want you to give under compulsion. I don't want you to give reluctantly, but I want you to give cheerfully. And the word there, the Greek word that is used there is the word hilarion. That literally the way that I give is hilarious. Now imagine for a second. Our host team's walking by and they're passing the bucket around. And as they pass the bucket around, like people are just cracking up laughing. I've never seen that actually take place before. I'd love for that to be the case, but for most of us, we say, wait, I know that like I've worked hard for this money and it's not like my family has a lot. And yet when we have a chance to give, we should not give reluctantly or because we're under compulsion, because we feel like we have to give. But because we say, God, I want to support your kingdom in such a powerful way. I want to see people's lives changed and transformed.